Um,
Right. Okay, it's 7 o'clock and it's Tuesday, March the 2nd. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the East Herts Council meeting. I've just got to read you this preamble that we do before every meeting these days. The local authorities and police and crime panels coronavirus, flexibility of local authority and police and crime panel meetings, England and Wales regulations 2020, came into force on Saturday, the 4th of April 2020, to enable councils to hold remote committee meetings during the COVID-19 pandemic period. This was to ensure local authorities could conduct business during the current public health emergency. This meeting of the council is being held remotely under these regulations via Zoom and is being recorded and live streamed on the East Herts District YouTube channel. So a warm welcome to you all. We've only got 905 pages to get through tonight. Shouldn't take too long. First, though, can I introduce Rabbi Roderick Young. I saw him on the screen briefly earlier. And there you are. I can see you. Rabbi Young, thank you. If you'd like to unmute yourself and begin the meeting with a religious reflection. And thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening. I imagine that there may be several different religions and none represented here tonight. And that basically sums up my own family. My mother converted from Judaism to Christianity at the age of 16 in 1936. I didn't know this until I discovered that she was Jewish one dramatic Saturday when I was 23 years old. I'd been raised in the Anglican Church, but after this, I became increasingly interested in Judaism, eventually becoming a rabbi. Now, as you can appreciate, this led to some spirited discussions with my mother. One day, when discussing theology, I began a point by saying, well, of course, one has to remember that Jesus was a Jew. To which my mother immediately countered, he was not. Completely nonplussed, I said to Mum, "Well, what was he then?" Drawing herself up to her full 5 feet, she replied with complete seriousness and total conviction, "Jesus was Church of England." The Mishnah, a code of Jewish laws written about 1800 years ago, states in Hebrew, "Al tifrosh min hatzibor," meaning, do not separate yourself from the community. And it's so impressive that so many of you here tonight give your time and your energy for the good of community. I'm sure that sometimes it makes you want to tear your hair out, but the point is that it is sacred work, whether you are religious or not. So thank you. And my favorite quotation is actually not a Jewish one. This is part of a letter written in the year 384 by the Roman senator Symmachus, who was a pagan, to the Christian emperor Valentinian II. It is reasonable that whatever each of us worships is really to be considered one and the same. We gaze up at the same stars. The sky covers us all. The same universe compasses us. What does it matter what practical system we adopt in our search for the truth? Not by one avenue only can we arrive at so tremendous a secret. Symmachus reminds us that we should build our world and our community from many different points of view, but respecting differences of opinion. And I guess that's what you all do. So please allow me to end with a blessing. It goes like this. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'tzorchei hatzibor. Blessed are you, God, who commands us to busy ourselves with the needs of the community. Thank you so much for listening.
Rabbi Young, thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening. Much appreciated. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night to you. Bye-bye. You're getting some waves. Excellent. Now, there's been a Zoom update, as most of you will probably know by now. So we have a slightly different procedure to follow when it comes to voting, because the green tick and the red cross that we got used to over the last year can no longer be used. Instead, we will vote a bit like if we were in the council chamber. So when I ask people to vote for something, if you go into the bottom of your screen, those of you with the updated version will go to reactions, and then you will click on raise hand. And then we will count the number of yellow hands that come up for. Then we will delete those who voted for, and then we will then do against and ask those people to click raise hand, and then to the abstentions. The reason being is because the red and the green only stays on the screen for about 5 seconds, and that's why we can't add them up. So we're having to use the yellow hand. If you've got the old system, then you go into participants at the bottom of the screen, and then you just find the blue hand, click on that, as we used to do when you wanted to speak. So that's the way we're going to have to be voting when we do that a little bit later on. I think I've mostly covered most of the issues. If there's anybody here that is not a councillor or a council officer and you want to stay for more of the meeting, if you can, after you've spoken, mute yourself and then turn your camera off, please, or you can just press the leave button and go. Now let me welcome Harvey Moore. I saw Harvey on the screen. earlier on. Harvey, are you there? There you are, right. Harvey, a very good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Harvey has been awarded the OBE, and he's been a resident of Hertford for 7 years. He moved from Welwyn Garden City, where he lived for some time. He joined the Ministry of Defence in 2003, following a career in retail management. He's performed a number of roles in the MOD, but over the last year, he's led the resilience response to COVID-19, for which he was awarded an MBE in the New Year's Honours. He's also, incidentally, a co-opted governor of Richard Hale's School. He's been a co-opted governor there for the last 5 years. I'm just going to read part of the letter that was sent to him by Lieutenant General James Swift, OBE, who is Chief of Defence People at the Ministry of Defence. And part of the letter says, referring to Harvey, the scale of your team's work in managing the impact of the pandemic on an organisation of almost 200,000 personnel across all 4 nations of the UK and a number of permanent bases overseas was enormous. Drawing advice from scientists, medics, HR professionals, and others to ensure comprehensive and compassionate advice on the range of challenges posed to armed forces personnel and their families, and you ensured the MOD was aligned with wider government. You have shown great dedication to the department, and it is entirely appropriate that your achievements have been recognised in this way. And he signs off by saying, I hope receiving this award provides a sense of pride to you and your family as it represents your valuable contribution to public service. Harvey, congratulations to you.
Thank you very much indeed. Very kind of you.
I mean, it sounds like it's a huge project you're involved in. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you've had to do?
Yeah, so we, me and my team were planning, have been planning resilience response against all manner of threats and hazards to defence for some time. And then when COVID came along, we had to get into proper response mode and set up the planning for the response and then the recovery as we have, once we got over the initial shock. As James Swift said, I kind of engaged with medics, HR professionals across the department, defence industry and military commanders, just to ensure that we continue to operate, we continue to deliver our outputs, and it enabled defence to carry on providing the assistance to the civil authorities that has been, hugely successful over the last year. While we're trying to keep all our personnel, both civilian, military, and contractors and their families, safe while we did it. It's a huge challenge. If you can say it's rewarding in a global pandemic, it has been very rewarding. I'm quite glad to get back to my humdrum role now, though. It's taken a lot out of me, but you do it well. You kind of do it because it needs to be done.
So you've had to organise and cajole an awful lot of people.
Yeah, it's in a organisation as large as defence. Everybody has opinion. They all think they're right, and being the military, they are very, very, very clear in their rightness. So tried to cajole and coerce and convince that that what you're saying is right is quite a challenge, but entertaining sometimes.
Was it strange adapting from retail management to the Ministry of Defence? You know what? People sort of sometimes look down on retail management. It is the best way to learn about people, of all sorts, all types, which stands you in quite good stead for joining somewhere as diverse as and large as the Ministry of Defence. So it's not so barking. Stacking beans isn't quite the same, but it gives you a good insight into people, which is just what you need for a job like that. Have you actually received the OBE at this point?
No, I suspect there's a bit of a backlog from last year. So I could get a corgi sort of giving it to me eventually if they, but we'll see. It might be a little while yet.
Well, you will be receiving...
But it's worth waiting for.
Yes, oh, absolutely. And you will be receiving a certificate from East Herts Council as well to commemorate your OBE. It won't be quite as prestigious, but it'll arrive, no doubt, quite soon. And I also ought to mention too, I know you have 3 sons, and in recent weeks, you and your partner have welcomed the addition of a daughter to your family. So many congratulations.
Yeah, it's been a crazy couple of months, I have to say. But, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. And thank you for inviting me. It's very kind.
Not at all. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Harvey Moore, OBE. Many thanks.
Thank you.
For joining us. Now we will. Oh, well, can I just mention to you? Remember, we had the Christmas jumper where we asked you to donate some money for Isabel Hospice. We got over £350. So thank you very much indeed for those of you that have either paid directly into the account or sent checks. Many thanks. That is appreciated. Now let's go to Katie Mogan, who many of you won't know, but Katie is our Democratic Services Manager. She's new to East Herts Council. Katie, good evening. Where are you?
Good evening, everybody.
There you are. Right. Hello, Katie. Thank you very much indeed, and welcome. And yes, I hope you're looking forward to the next few months or years, however long you'll be staying with East Herts Council. And Katie used to be at Decorum Council, so she's moved from West Hertfordshire to East Hertfordshire in some ways. Do we have any apologies for absence, Katie?
I've received 2 apologies from Councillor Andrews and Councillor McAndrew.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And we do a roll call as we normally do at the beginning of these online meetings. So, Katie, if you can call out councillors' names, and the councillors can unmute themselves and when their time comes and say if they're here or not.
Okay. Yeah. So, Councillor Alder.
Here.
Councillor Beckett.
Present.
Councillor Bell.
Present.
Councillor Bolton.
Present.
Councillor Boylan.
Present.
Councillor Brady.
Present.
Councillor Eric Buckmaster.
Present.
Councillor Ruth Buckmaster.
Present.
Councillor Ball.
Present.
Councillor Bermitz.
Present.
Councillor Corp.
Present.
Councillor Crofton.
Present.
Councillor Crystal.
Present.
Councillor Curtis.
Present.
Councillor Cutting.
Present.
Councillor Deering.
Present.
Councillor Devonshire.
Present.
Councillor Drake.
Leaving.
Is present.
Councillor Dumont.
Present.
Councillor Fernando.
Present.
Councillor Frecknell.
Present.
Councillor Goldspink.
I'm here.
Councillor Goodeve.
Present.
Councillor Hall.
Present.
Councillor Hazy.
Present.
Councillor Hollybon.
Present.
Councillor Huggins.
Present.
Councillor Jones.
Present.
Councillor Kay.
Present.
Councillor Kemp.
Present.
Councillor McMullen.
Present.
Councillor Newton.
Present.
Councillor Page.
Present.
Councillor Pope.
Present.
Councillor Ranger. Councillor Ranger. No. Councillor Redfern.
Present.
Councillor Reid.
Present.
Councillor Rowley.
Present.
Councillor Ruffles.
Present.
Councillor Rutland Barsby.
Present.
Councillor Snowden.
Here.
Councillor Stevenson.
Present.
Councillor Stowe.
Present.
Councillor Simons.
Present.
Councillor Warder Booth.
Present.
Councillor Williamson.
Present.
Councillor Wilson.
Present.
And Councillor Wiley.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we move on to item 3 now, which is on page 9. And it's the minutes of the last meeting held on the 13th of January. And are there any amendments or comments about the minutes before we vote on them? No? Okay. Councillor Fernando? Councillor Fernando, are you there? Oh, all right. Can I? Oh,
Can you hear me now?
yes, that's better. That's better.
Sorry. Yeah, happy to propose.
Sorry? Are you proposing?
Yes, happy to propose.
Happy to propose. Okay.
Move to-
Councillor Alder?
I'm happy to second the proposal.
Thank you. And I think we have to vote on it. So, well, actually, let's. Do we have to vote on it, Katie, or can we just ask
Yes.
those who are against it? Oh, okay. Vote. Let's
Yeah,
try.
you can just raise hands.
Yeah, let's experiment with the raise hands anyway from reactions.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I was not at the last full council meeting. I can't really approve them, can I?
No. Okay, that's fine.
I won't be doing anything then.
No, don't do anything. That's fine.
Just thought I'd clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
That looks carried to me, Chair.
Sorry. Yeah, that's carried. Thank you very much indeed. So, will you delete all the hands? Can you do that in one go? Yeah, great. We've still got a couple. Okay, right. That's good. All right. Thank you. That's carried. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest at all? Raise your yellow hand if there are, or your blue hand. No. Okay. Petitions. There aren't any petitions. So that's item 5. We're going to item 6, which is in the supplementary agenda number 2. And we have 2 public questions. Can I ask Jill Goldsmith, please, to ask her question? Jill Goldsmith? If you can- Yes.
I note that you are considering your draft cultural strategy today, and my question relates to that draft cultural strategy, which references on page 67 that various partners were involved in the development of the strategy, and that more partners are being signed up all the time. The list included only the library from Bishop Stortford, which is obviously not a Bishop Stortford residents organisation as such. Could the councillor responsible, who I think is Eric Buckmaster, confirm whether and when the team developing the strategy had any contact with any arts organisations in Bishop Stortford to seek their engagement? What responses the strategy group got from Bishop Stortford arts organisations to feed into the strategy, and which Bishop Stortford arts organisations the strategy team are now in contact with?
Thank you very much, Ms. Goldsmith. And if I can ask Councillor Eric Buckmaster to reply to that.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. And thank you, Jill, for the question. I need to address the points more broadly than how they're asked in order to explain our approach. For the first part of your question, 2020 was the designated year of culture. So we sent 200 invitations to organisations across the district for the launch, and around 35 attended. And like a lot of things, the year of culture was impacted by COVID. We then set up a year of culture support group, which had representatives from around the district, and including Bishop Stortford Town Council and Bishop Stortford Library, Clarion Housing, and an artist and a sculptor from Bishop Stortford, along with some East Herts members. I can forward the list of attendees from the other parts of the district over that period. Over many months, I worked with our officers towards achieving the basic framework of the draft cultural strategy, which was always intended to be inclusive, open to all, regardless of setting, location, or ability, and to reach those for whom it may be difficult to participate or to engage. The survey was therefore aimed at the whole of the district. It's a strategy to inspire, connect, and above all, create great cultural experiences for all. and the survey was an early sense check of the basic principles, and that went out towards the end of November. The survey was published on our website. It went out through our comms team to social media channels, and I asked every member of the council to share the link to the survey with their local networks. And I guess the point is that organisations that are not specifically involved in the arts are still able to deliver art and culture, and we wanted as broad a view as possible along with those already operating. You can see from the list of the partners so far on page 67, there are many community-based organisations. For the second part of your question, we received a total of 51 responses. Of these, there were 3 named organisations from Bishop Stortford: Parsonage Resident Association, Mondo Comico, Bishop Stortford Library. There were 16 anonymous responses and 8 named individuals with no contact details. It's not clear whom they represented and where they're from. We had 3 village hall and community buildings. Bishop Stortford Town Council, we also requested them to forward it to their local contacts and groups. We had 8 via the Community Grants Alert Group, 6 arts and cultural organisations, 15 organisations through a health and wellbeing group list, and quite a few of these organisations cover Bishop Stortford in terms of their outreach and client contact. There were 7 or 8 organisations that have an office or are directly based in Bishop Stortford. In order to answer the third part of your question, we are partnering with organisations now that can give us links to further groups. So again, Bishop Stortford Town Council, the Dementia Friendly Action Group, South Mill Arts Centre, and Bishop Stortford Library are just some of the examples. As I said in my introduction to the cultural strategy document, this is just the beginning, literally the beginning. With members' agreement this evening, we'll now be setting up the actual mechanisms needed to engage further and deliver the strategy. So we'll be working through the list of organisations we have on our database to update them, engage with new partners, and seek opportunities to enhance the arts and cultural offering across the district. And our door will remain open to all who wish to enter from wherever they hail, whether already working in the arts or intending to in the future. And we encourage Bishop Stortford organisations to work with us as we do others across East Herts. And I think it's going to be a very exciting journey. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckmaster. Jill, do you have a supplementary question at all?
Not as such. Obviously, it's a very interesting time in Bishop Stortford at the moment with the South Mill Arts Centre setting up in a different way, the closure of the United Reformed Church potentially in due course to arts groups, and question mark as to whether the ORL is going to be worth having as a cinema. So I would urge you to engage with a wide variety of organisations in Bishop Stortford, and if there is a need for there to be a collective view outside of the town council, that you could work with people within the town to get that.
Thank you, Jill, and again, thank you, Chairman. Absolutely, yes. We'd be happy for anyone to contact us. We're going to be setting up a strategy group and a delivery group. And of course, anybody who's interested in the arts and wants to work with us, they're more than welcome to do that. So please stay in touch. And as I said, these will be very exciting times. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Buckmaster. Thank you, Jill Goldsmith, as well, for your question this evening. Chris Dunham, on behalf of the Bishop Stortford Climate Group, is going to be asking a question next. Chris Dunham.
Thank you very much, Chair. So the government's official advisory body on climate matters, the Committee on Climate Change, reported in 2019 that it costs between £16,000 and £25,000 to retrofit a new semi-detached house to be compatible with net zero carbon, whereas it costs between £3,000 and £5,000 to build in compatibility at the point of construction. The government recently announced in its consultation decision on the Future Homes Standard that it does not, after all, intend to prevent local authorities from setting higher environmental or energy standards through planning policy than are required by building regulations. In light of this, can the council confirm that if this is reinforced by a similar decision in relation to the planning white paper, that it will immediately move to implement a revision to the district plan to require new buildings to achieve net zero carbon in operation, and in doing so end the perverse situation where, in order to allow developers to avoid £4,000 of costs, we impose £20,000 of costs?
Right, thank you very much indeed. Can I ask for Councillor Jan Goody, the Executive Member for Planning and Growth, to respond to this question?
Thank you, Chairman. This is a really important question, and I welcome the fact that government has now set out its plans and timeframe for its new Future Homes Standard, which aims to radically improve the energy performance of new homes, making them zero carbon ready by 2025. In terms of the specific question raised, the government has indicated that it has for now backed down on its proposal to prevent local authorities from setting tougher energy efficient standards for new homes in their area. The government has said that its planning reforms will clarify the longer term role of local planning authorities in determining local energy efficiency standards. I would welcome the ability for this council to be able to set and justify higher standards of energy efficiency. As colleagues are aware, the council has agreed a climate change motion, and in order to reach a position of net zero carbon by 2030, it needs the tools to achieve this. I therefore agree that climate change needs a strong response at local level, and as such, this council will be fully committed once the government's position has been clarified through its planning reforms to reviewing its district plan in a timely manner, including updating its evidence base to be able to justify higher standards of energy efficiency.
Thanks very much indeed, Councillor Goody. Mr. Dunham, do you have a supplementary question?
I just wonder what a timely manner means in practice, because obviously new homes are going up all around East Harts all the time, thousands over the next 5 years. And will we be ready to move quickly to, limit the damage that is currently being allowed by not imposing stricter standards? So just a question over, I welcome your response. I just wonder what in a timely manner means in practice.
Well, I would agree. It's in our own interest and in those of our children. And we will move as fast as we are able to.
So it sounds like a timely manner. Well, how do you interpret a timely manner? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Dunham, for the question, and thank you, Councillor Goody, for the response. Can we go now to item number 7, which is also on the supplementary agenda number 2. It's on page 5 of that agenda, to members' questions. And given the fact that we now publish the full responses the day after the meeting, then short verbal responses are encouraged, please, by the executive. Any remaining questions that we don't have time for, because we've got such a long agenda tonight, will be responded to in writing before the next ordinary meeting of the council. All responses will be published on the website as soon as possible after tonight's meeting. First question is from Councillor James Frecknell.
Thank you, Chair. In a recent publication by The Lancet, 1 in 6 young people reported mental health problems, an increase from 1 in 10 in 2017. This figure, based on results from England's Mental Health of Children and Young People survey, brings into stark reality the often unseen impact of the pandemic on the youngest members of our society. Children with probable mental health problems are more than twice as likely to live in households newly falling behind with their bills, rent or mortgage payments, and 1 in 10 children and young people reported that during the pandemic their family did not have enough to eat or have had an increased reliance on food banks when compared with before the pandemic. While much of the responsibility for child mental health commissioning rests with HCC, what help or support networks are available from East Hertfordshire District Council to help protect the mental health of our future generations?
Councillor Eric Buckmaster to answer this one.
Thank you again, Chairman, and thank you to Councillor Frecknell for the question. I must say this is a very challenging question. I'm going to give as brief an answer as I'm able, and I will publish a longer version as the Chairman suggests, but there's still quite a lot to cover. I'm going to take that as networks open to East Herts residents, since, as we know, the District Council does not directly commission mental health services. So I'll try to give some background and pointers about what may be available generally, and then some interactions with East Herts, because 90% of the funding for mental health comes from the NHS. My main message is that it's important for members to subscribe to bulletins or notifications so that we're all aware of initiatives and programs promoted by various organisations and agencies. And very often these are promoted via comms bulletins or on social media, and which we can onward share among our communities. The Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services in Hertfordshire and Hertfordshire Partnership Foundation Trust, CAMS and HPFT cover services that support the emotional and mental health of children and young people, like school counselling, play therapy, and more specialist teams like the Eating Disorder Service. Ahead of the return to school last autumn, a really useful document was issued by Hertfordshire to support the transition back to school following the COVID-19 outbreak, and contains some useful links to support information and advice helplines. And on the gov.uk website, there is a link to Public Health England's advice for parents and carers on looking after the mental health and well-being of children or young people during the coronavirus outbreak. From County Council specifically on COVID, there's a new helpline for school staff and pupils, and Hertfordshire is funding supervision for 100 school professionals with resilience programs for 1,500 parents and an emotional regulation pilot in schools across East Herts. There are examples of other initiatives and agencies that can support young people. YC, Youth Connections, Hertfordshire have emotional wellbeing projects and diversionary programs. Just Talk is a multi-agency campaign steered by young people, and it was an outcome of extensive research and consultation that took place with teenage boys across Hertfordshire. Another initiative is Healthy Young Minds in Herts, which will support a whole school approach and positive steps which schools can consider taking to help students, parents and carers. Being fit and active is an important part of mental well-being. Herts Sports Partnership and Herts Community Foundation were selected as county partners to coordinate a programme of holiday activities and food programme which will cover the Easter, summer and Christmas holidays in 2021. And the focus of the programme is the provision of free holiday provision, including healthy food and enriching activities. And organisations can apply to be part of that programme and apply for funding. It's open now. And closer to home, Hertford Theatre has been awarded a small grant by the Royal Opera House Bridge organisation to engage in a planning and consultation exercise with primary and secondary schools in East Herts with regards to their wellbeing needs and how best the theatre can serve them. And of course, this evening we have on our agenda the new East Herts cultural strategy, which we aim to be of benefit to those of all ages and circumstances. Our grant funding has also been key in supporting many local organisations to help young people keep physically and mentally active. And as I said, I'll provide a fuller response for the website in which I'll list a few examples of that. And I think my final message to members is to ensure any queries received from residents are quickly referred on to the appropriate officers at East Herts or County, or they can be directed to the Herts Help webpage or helpline. And I hope that in some way addresses this question. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Frecknell, do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, just a quick one, please. I appreciate the challenges of the question that I posed to Councillor Buckmaster there, but I would hope, if possible, some of these links, because there are obviously many, including with the county links, could be posted, the actual links themselves on the website, as well as I noticed with the health and wellbeing section of the website. There are only a couple of links and they tend to be about male mental health, and as important as that is, it would be great if we could have maybe some female mental health and some young person mental health links on the website as well.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And again, thank you, James. I think those are really good points. One of the things I'm thinking strongly about is how we improve the use of the Healthy Hub that we have, and linking things such as our social prescribing and any mental well-being elements, including the cultural strategy. And I think it would be useful to have many of those links on there that you suggest. So I think an absolutely perfect way of looking at things. And thanks again for the question, because it really did challenge me into how we could approach such a broad subject. So thanks again.
Thanks very much. Councillor Ben Crystal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. According to figures in the latest East Herts Council analysis, in 2019, nitrogen dioxide levels breached the annual UK legal limit at numerous locations in and near current air quality management areas, namely Hockerell Junction, Northgate End, Station Road and London Road in Bishop Stortford, at Bell Street and London Road in Sawbridgeworth, and at Ware Road, Old Cross, North Road and West Street in Hertford. Some sites in Bishop Stortford were more than 50% above the UK limit, and at half the locations tested, the year-on-year trend in NO2 concentrations is rising. In terms of traffic levels, we can expect very soon, by the summer probably, that levels will return to normal. In addition, our towns are seeing large numbers of new developments, plus more gas boilers, more combustion engines. Given all these facts, what evidence do we have that the council actions to reduce NO2 air pollution within our air quality management areas are effective? And is it time for the council to investigate more innovative ideas to help reduce air pollution at targeted sites?
Thank you. I understand Councillor McAndrew is not here tonight because he's not very well. Is somebody else going to respond to those?
Yes, Chairman, I am.
Councillor Cutting.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Appreciate that. On behalf of Councillor McAndrew, I welcome Councillor Crystal's analysis of the statistics and share his concern that levels of NO2 have not yet fallen below the 40 micrograms per cubic metre target at all the monitoring sites within each of the air quality management areas. I believe the statistics do, however, point to some degree of success in tackling air pollution. Notably, NO2 levels at 4 of the 6 monitoring locations within the Hertford air quality management area are below the target, with the other 2 only just above the target. That said, however, the picture is more mixed in Sawbridgeworth and Hockerell Junction air quality management areas. In the face of these challenges, I would contend that the council is taking innovative steps to mobilise all those with a role to play in reducing air pollution, while recognising sometimes conflicting views which the council, in its local leadership role, must seek to address. I would like to point out that the council is one of only a minority of authorities which operate an e-car club, and that Hockerell Junction, we have worked with Hertfordshire County Council to see the installation of smart traffic light management to reduce the time vehicles spend idling. To some degree, this is likely to have directly contributed to the improvements in air quality at the junction, despite no discernible decrease in the amount of traffic. Finally, I would like to draw members' attention to the Sustainability Supplementary Planning document on this evening's agenda, with a recommendation for adoption. This SPD has been based on best practice and a considerable amount of research and consultation. The document is unequivocal and is requirement that the new document must not lead to the designation of a new air quality management area or worsen pollutant levels within an existing AQMA. In addition, it clearly lays out the Council's expectations regarding the installation of low emissions heating systems. The SPD will require applicants to provide a detailed account of how they will mitigate any potential air quality degradation, and this information will feed into the planning decision-making process. Through the examples I have highlighted, I hope and have demonstrated the Council's innovative and concerted efforts to tackle air pollution. That said, I and colleagues are happy to consider further ideas on how, as a district council, we can directly or through our influence work with residents and partners to continue to drive up local air quality. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Cutting. Councillor Cutting, will you be able to answer a supplementary or at least pass on the query to Councillor McAndrew?
I think it's already been stated, Chairman, the supplementary questions will be answered in writing and put on the website either tomorrow or ASAP.
Yes, no, that's fine. So, Councillor Crystal, do you want to pose one, and we'll make a note of it and get it answered?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Cutting, for the answer. No, I don't have a supplementary question. Thank you.
That's fine. Okay, Councillor Cutting, you're right to answer the next one as well. Councillor Dumont's query, which also would have gone to Councillor McAndrew. Is that likely to be you?
I'm happy to do so, but I understand that Councillor Goody was answering this one, but if she's not able to,
I'm all here and ready.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, very good. Councillor Joseph Dumont, then, your question.
Thank you, Chairman. There are 3 air quality management areas in East Herts, in Bishop Stortford, Sawbridgeworth, and also in Hertford. The last available pollution readings are from 2019. Given that there has recently been a great deal of congestion in one of those areas due to a new development being built, it is imperative that we get real-time data, or at the very least, more regular updates regarding levels of air pollutants and pollution in the hotspots. Increasing public awareness of the issue can also help change behaviour, but we need more up-to-date data to do this effectively. Can I therefore ask if the Council has any plans to improve air quality monitoring in the 3 AQMAs areas and in the district as a whole, and if not, why not?
Councillor Goody.
Thank you, Chairman. As Councillor Dumont has noted, there are 3 AQAMAs in East Herts within which air quality is monitored. The latest findings are based on the 2019 results. There is an unavoidable time delay in producing our report because the Council must first submit the data to DEFRA for analysis and verification. With regard to real-time monitoring, this is carried out in the Hertford AQMA with information readily available at www.airqualityengland.co.uk. While we have publicised the website before, I feel it would be helpful to do this again. The principal aim of air quality monitoring, of course, is to better understand the local situation so as to put in place remedial measures where necessary. In response to Councillor Crystal's question, I have already made reference to the detailed statistics that the Council holds on air quality in the AQMAs. Councillor Dumont raises the crucial importance of behaviour change, with which I concur. To this end, the Council has, over the last 2 years, installed a dozen e-vehicle chargers in the district and is working to install more. We have promoted pedestrian journeys into Hertford Town Centre by upgrading the pedestrian underpasses, and we are currently working with Hertfordshire County Council to promote anti-idling messages and signage. To conclude, I would argue that given the Council's limited resources, rather than invest in real-time monitoring to simply add to our existing body of data, it is better to continue to focus our attention on making interventions to foster behavioural change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dumont, if you have a supplementary, we'll get a written response to you. No. Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to have to make the next one the last one, I'm afraid, because we're well over our.
I don't know. I'm sorry, I was on mute. I don't have a supplement.
You don't have. No,
I just wanted to thank
I was
Councillor
looking
Gilly
at
for
your
stepping
head,
in.
and I could see you were sort of nodding no, so that's fine. That's fine. I'm going to ask for the last one in this segment, I'm afraid. Councillor Chris Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. So in October 2019, I proposed a motion that, once amended, was passed unanimously regarding the provision of an on-demand or demand responsive transport service for East Herts. I understand that there has been some progress towards achieving this aim. I'll be grateful if Councillor McAndrew, or presumably somebody else, could provide an update with regards to its progress and his opinion on why the district would benefit from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. And Councillor Eric Buckmaster is going to answer this one.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it's me again. Got to make sure I've got the right notes here.
You don't start talking about Hertford Theatre or something.
Yes. Yeah, so thank you to Councillor Chris Wilson for the question. So the response that's been provided by Councillor McAndrew is as following. Early last year, Hertfordshire County Council put a number of bids to the DfT for funding from the Rural Mobility Fund, demand responsive travel. After 75 applications across the country, it was announced that the rural northeast of Herts DRT bid has progressed to phase 2. And there are 17 successful local authorities to be accepted at this stage. The County Council have been working on the second phase of this funding and have submitted that to the Department for Transport for review. The proposed scheme would serve North and East Herts, focusing primarily on Buntingford and surrounding areas. Travel would be allowed anywhere within this zone. However, passengers would also be able to travel to key points such as hospitals and high streets within the 6 main towns surrounding the area: Royston, Letchworth, Hitchin, Stevenage, Bishop, Stortford and Baldock. The objective of the DRT is to improve transport in North and East Herts and to improve connections between rural areas and town centres, as well as expand access to employment, education, healthcare and shopping. The DRT service will help to reduce social isolation and improve accessibility for transport disadvantaged people in the focus area, particularly people who have access to neither private cars nor public transport. The Department for Transport are looking to make an announcement on the successful bids early in March. Accompanying this response, when published on the website, there will be an attached map which shows the operational zone and the 6 key hubs. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Buckmaster. Councillor Wilson, do you have a supplementary you want a written answer for?
No, I just would like to welcome this progress and hope that it continues further so we can realise this opportunity. And also, just for members' interest, that in the cultural strategy later on, it actually says that there's a difficulty with rural people accessing cultural activities due to the lack of public transport at times. So that's quite apposite for the later topic.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Councillor Wilson. And apologies to Councillor Devonshire and Councillor Bell that we couldn't get to your questions, but there will be a written response very soon indeed, I think, on the website and generally. We'll move on to item 8 now, which is on page 31 of the agenda pack, and that's the executive report, and call on the Leader of the Council, Councillor Linda Hasey, for this one.
Thank you and good evening, everybody. And I hope you are all keeping well and starting to enjoy this spring sunshine. There is one item that came out of the executive on the 24th of November, and that was the publication of the Gilston Area Community Strategy Engagement, which we are now at Council to adopt. It's an important document, and it's one that I'm very proud that we've actually managed, we have got here, so that we can carry on talking with all our residents, both in Gilston and the surrounding area. So I'm happy to propose this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And Councillor Devonshire.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, engaging the local community in the planning process is something that is very much to be welcomed, and so I'm extremely happy to second this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And if there's any comments or questions on this, don't forget to go to reactions at the bottom of your screen and click raise hand, or if you've got the old style, go to participants and then click the blue hand. Councillor Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Liberal Democrat group is very happy to support these recommendations. We're always in favour of community engagement and discussion and communication. So we're very happy to support these recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll then go to the recommendations A and B. They're on page 32, and ask you please to go and vote under the raise hand section at the bottom of the screen. This is for those of you in favour of it.
I think
Thank
that's
you.
agreed.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Katie. Yeah, that's in favour of that. Can I just ask, well, first we'll delete all the yellow hands. We see all these flashing screens going across us. And if I could ask anybody wants to vote against it, please raise your yellow hand or blue hand now, if anybody's against it. No, and any abstentions? No, okay, thank you. So that's certainly carried. And we will then move on to the item number 9 now on page 61 of the executive report. Is that Councillor Hazy or Councillor Buckmaster speaking on this?
I'll just say there are 3 items in this executive that will need to be approved by council. Councillor Buckmaster is going to introduce the first one, which is on the cultural strategy. Councillor Goody will do the sustainability strategy, and again she will do the planning enforcement. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Buckmaster.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I have spoken at length earlier about our approach to this strategy, and it was considered by members at overview and scrutiny and executive, where I proposed an additional recommendation B, which will enable us to put the mechanisms in place to get the show on the road. And I'd like to thank all of our staff in the wellbeing team for their efforts in getting the strategy together, and for all those community organisations which will form a big part of what we do going forward. For those familiar with the ending of Casablanca, I quote Humphrey Bogart, "I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship." I commend the strategy to council and recommendations A and B. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckmaster. Councillor Stevenson.
Yes, I would like to support this as a recommendation as well, especially since it's a nice beginning. We really need to do a lot of work, but it's a really good structure, I think, for a beginning. Thank you.
So you're seconding this. Thank
yes.
you. And any comments or questions, please raise your hand. Councillor Miranda Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Liberal Democrat group is very happy to support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. It looks like an excellent piece of work, and I'd like to give credit to the officers that have produced it. It's just a slight point, really, regarding the LGBTQ community. On page 69, it's stated that an estimated 6% of East Harts residents are LGBTQ. And later on in page 100, it says there's a high priority action, which is to engage with these groups and individuals. It's part of the equality impact analysis. And indeed to contact groups to try and identify these people so they can be part of the strategy. I was just wondering if at this late stage it was possible to make a very slight amendment on page 70. Sorry to jump around. It says that ensuring residents of all religious and cultural backgrounds are involved in developing cultural opportunities. I was just wondering if we could add in something about ensuring residents from LGBTQ background as well.
All right, thank you.
Would you like me to answer that, Chairman?
Yes, please.
Yeah, in fact, I made a point of including the LGBT community in those parts of the paper. It may well, but I don't think it needs an amendment to the paper, but it's certainly something that we can adapt as we go forward. So it's a very good point, and we need to make sure that it's absolutely inclusive for all. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. And now let's take a vote on that then. We're looking at the recommendations A and B on page 62. And yes, raise your hand, please, if you're in favour.
That's carried, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. And we'll just delete the yellow hands. And anybody against, please raise your hand. And any abstentions? No, so that is carried. Thank you very much indeed. And we go on to 9B, the Sustainable Supplementary Planning Document. And Councillor Goodeve.
Thank you, Chairman. This was a really comprehensive piece of work, and it was pleasing to see the huge number of responses that came in from interested parties, and indeed the other political parties that we have represented here. This is a document that's going to carry us forward for all of our strategic sites, and hopefully will make a very important impact going forward. I would like to propose that we take the recommendations A, B and C on block.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Wiley.
Thank you, Chairman. Happy to second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions at all to do with this particular report? Councillor Goldspink. Well, we'll come back to Councillor Goldspink. Councillor Ben Crystal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to congratulate the officers and the members involved in putting this through. I think it's clearly a massive piece of work, and it's taken a huge amount of effort of time, I'm sure. But I think it's a very good piece, and I wanted to thank them.
Thank you very much, Councillor Crystal. Councillor Terence Beckett.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I would like to just add my thanks and recognition of the hard work performed by officers on this. It's something long overdue for us, and I think it's a superb piece of work. So thank you, and wholeheartedly support it.
Thank you, Councillor Beckett. Councillor Goldspink, are you there at all?
Yes, I think I am. Sorry, Chairman. Yes, thank you very much. Yes, we do support this very strongly. Have a slight regret. Oh, sorry.
We saw you on camera for a second.
Yes, right. We do regret that this document has not got a very strong teeth, but it is a very good wish list. And we particularly like the fact that there is a checklist for all applicants and developers to fill in. And I think that gives everybody a really good idea as to what the agenda that we have and what improvements we're looking for. So yes, a good piece of work, and we do support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. I can't remember, did we second it? Did Councillor Wiley second it? I think he did. I'm just going to check. Yes, you did. Right. Thank you very much, John. Okay. Thank you for your comments and questions. So we're looking at page.
Chairman.
Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, Chairman. Sorry to butt in, but I've got a slight problem on my iPad. When I go to the anticipation, it says only the host is in on this meeting.
Well, at the bottom of your screen, have you got?
So you're not.
Have you got reactions at the bottom of your screen?
No, I haven't. No.
When you,
I operate from the icons at the top.
All right. Does it say reactions or participants?
Participant. Let's try that.
Try that and see if you've got the blue hand. You might have the older system.
Ah. Yeah, that seems to work.
Okay.
So if I press the blue one,
then
can
you'll be vote. Yep, that should be counted in. Okay, so
yeah, that works. Yes, that
jolly
works. Thank you, Chairman.
No, that's
My
fine.
apologies. My
No
apologies.
no problem. If you'd like to raise hand, yellow or blue, to vote in favour of what's on page 62 and 63, A, B, and C.
That looks to be carried again, Chair.
Yes. Do we go? Well, I suppose we still go to anybody against once they're cleared. And wait for them to clear. Right. Anybody against? And any? We've got Jan Goody's hand up there. I don't think she's voting against. And abstentions. No. Okay, that's carried definitely. Thank you very much indeed. And now item 9C, Planning Enforcement Plan Review and Update. Councillor Goody again.
Thank you, Chairman. Members would have had the opportunity of attending a briefing on the proposed enforcement plan. It also went through overview and scrutiny and also came to executive. So I hope members will feel able to support the new plan. And I'd just like to remind everyone that we will be conducting a review of how it's working in a year's time. I would therefore like to propose that we take recommendation A.
Thank you very much, Councillor Goody. Councillor Tim Page.
Yeah, it gives me pleasure to support the recommendation and therefore second the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Any comments or questions? Councillor Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I would like to thank the officers very much for this excellent piece of work. I think it is very sensible and the Liberal Democrat group is very happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brady? No? Oh, okay, right, that was it. You were probably voting ahead of time. So we can now vote on page 63, the middle of that page on A, and raise your hand, please, if you're in favour.
Yes, that's carried, Chair.
Thank you very much. And we'll just clear the screen. And if anybody wants to vote against, to do so now. And anybody wants to abstain, to do so now. Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much indeed. And now we go to item 10, which is on page 581 of the agenda, the Millstream Business Plan 2020-2021 and Council Cash Flows. That's page 581. Can I just mention to you that if anybody during the comments or questions refers to the part 2, which I think is on page 591, then we will have to exclude the press and the public and stop the live stream and then come back to it. But that's only if you're referring to that particular section. So can I invite the Executive Member for Financial Sustainability, Councillor Jeff Williamson, to present this report.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman, and good evening, everyone. By way of introduction, our property investment company, Millstream, was established formally in February 2018. So this current year has been its third full year of trading. As members will know, the company was established as a means of generating revenue for the council through residential property investment, making money essentially through lending capital to the company with which it can make its property purchases. Although the council in turn would need to borrow in order to lend, the uplift in the interest rate at which we lend provides us with the income. Normally at this time, we would be looking ahead at the company's plans for further growth, increasing its stock, which it funds through extending its borrowing from the council, and thereby increasing the revenue flow to the council. However, as members will know, under new PWLB rules from the 26th of November last year, local authorities are now prohibited from borrowing where any part of the capital programme contains investment for yield. As lending to Millstream does represent investment for yield, we have therefore had to put all plans on hold. Nonetheless, the company is still required to update its business plan, and we, as the company shareholder, are still required to approve it. The business plan itself is given as Appendix A, and as the chairman referred to a few moments ago, I should point out that as it does contain sensitive commercial information, it is an exempt item. So I would like to now invite Jonathan Gill, as a director of Millstream, to give us his update from the company's perspective. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yes, Jonathan, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Williamson. I am aware that it is unusual for a council officer to address full council, so I do stress that I'm speaking in my role as a director of Millstream, to make that clear. And so, following on from Councillor Williamson's introduction, on behalf of Millstream, I would like to thank the members of the Shareholder Advisory Group, that is Councillor Deering, Councillor Devonshire and Councillor Goodeve, and also the shareholder representative, that's the council's chief executive, and the head of strategic finance and property, for their guidance on the development of the business plan, which is in front of you tonight. As Councillor Williamson has just explained, and is covered in paragraph 2.5 of the covering report in front of you, there have been recent national changes to the regulations regarding how councils can access funds to lend on to their wholly owned companies. And as a result, the council has asked Millstream to pause any proposed acquisitions in 21-22, the next financial year, pending further council opinion on those changes. In addition, and as covered in paragraphs 3.4 to 3.6 of the report, further guidance on how council should account for any lending to companies has also changed somewhat since Millstream was established. And those changes would also need to be considered should the council and Millstream then be in a position for the company, in the position for Millstream to look to buy or indeed build properties again in the future. So to sum up, the business plan proposes to continue managing the properties it holds, with no acquisitions proposed for 21-22. As both the chairman and I think Councillor Williamson have just explained, the business plan itself is within an exempt appendix because of the nature of the commercial information there. However, on behalf of the company, I would like to assure members that the business plan, as recommended for approval, will still be able to deliver the income to the council as assumed in the 21-22 budget, which is included elsewhere on the agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Councillor Williamson. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williamson, do you want to continue or are you finished?
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Chairman. So with reference to page 581 of the report, we do have the one recommendation which I'm pleased to move, asking us to approve the business plan as contained in Appendix A. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Bob Deering.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. I'm very happy to second this. This is an eminently sensible recommendation and report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Deering. Any other comments or questions? Click your raised hand. If not, we'll take a vote on 581 on the recommendation A. And, oh, sorry, Councillor Alder. Oh, no, you're voting. You're voting, I see. Okay, that's fine. Raise hands and then vote.
Yes, that's carried, Chair.
Thank you very much. And anybody against? And any abstentions? Okay, thank you. We will now, oh, have we got a couple? Is that 2 abstentions or 2 against? Councillor Goldspink and Councillor Corp, or is that? Have we got that? Do one of you want to?
I'm abstaining.
You're abstaining. Okay, and Councillor Corp as well. That's fine. Thank you very much indeed. Item number 11 is budget 2021-2022 and the medium-term financial plan 2021 to 2024. It's on page 615 of the report. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you again, Chairman. I am very pleased to present to Council the medium-term financial plan covering the next 4 years, including our budget for the year 2021 to 22. The papers in front of us tonight provide a comprehensive report into all aspects of our budget for the next financial year and our financial planning for the period leading up to 2025. They include proposals for our revenue budgeting, our funding through council tax, a review of our fees and charges, use of our reserves, and our capital programme. They also cover our plans for how we will intend to prepare for our future financial challenges. When last year we started to look at the budget and the MTFP, we knew we had a target to save of £4 million over the next 3 years, 1 million of which needed to be found from the coming year. We therefore asked the leadership team to present ideas for savings within their respective services that would help us to meet those targets. Based on these proposals, a set of preferred options was devised, which are presented in tonight's report as Appendix A. Among them is the scheme for charging for garden waste collection, which was formally approved at Council in January. I can say to you tonight that sign-ups are going very well for meeting the expectations contained within our MTFP, with roughly 9,550 households already signed up, about a third of our households, and we're sort of 2 weeks into the 6 weeks sort of period between signing up and when the green waste collections will be starting. The savings are to be introduced in stages over the next 3 years, and at the time we published the proposals, they succeeded in filling the budget gap for 21-22, though left a £200,000 gap for 22-23, and just under £1 million to find for 23-24. We are recommending that these savings proposals should be implemented, and that furthermore, should a situation arise whereby any of these proposals be subsequently withdrawn or substantially reduced, then clearly an equivalent saving capable of being delivered within the same timescale will need to be found elsewhere in order to compensate. Since the time these proposals were published for scrutiny last year, however, several factors have come together to add further to our budget pressures. The end of cycling credits from the County Council will see a reduction in income for us of about 400,000, and anticipated possible losses in business rates could impact on us to the tune of 2.7 million, even after government compensation. On top of these, we have the suspension of our financial sustainability measures, which were intended to bring us income, as I mentioned earlier. And for the moment, we also have the ongoing impacts of COVID. All these now mean a further £3.25 million of savings to be found by the year 23-24. However, the situation for us could be worse were the 21-22 settlement for local authorities not a roll forward of that we had for the current year, which will provide us with an extra £1.2 million of new homes bonus. We have seen this scheme scaled back over the last 3 years, and we had expected that our receipt for 21-22 would be a legacy payment only from prior year completions. The future of new homes bonus still remains doubtful, and the government recently launched a consultation on proposals which indicate that replacement will be of a much smaller scale. When new homes bonus was introduced back in 2010, it was an incentive for local authorities to take a positive view on housing growth. At its heart, we adopted from the outset a policy of using 50% of new homes bonus receipts as a contribution to our revenue funding, 25% put into our priority spend reserve, and the remaining 25% has, on a discretionary basis, been passed on to our towns and parishes. But for next year, our new homes bonus is required to support our balance sheet. We are not to find yet further savings. Therefore, we cannot continue this automatic payment to town and parish councils. But instead, we propose that towns and parishes can request funding from us up to a level of what they would have received if they have particular community projects planned and all the previous new homes bonus money paid to them has already been committed. In this way, we can still support local community projects, whilst we will accrue savings from the fact that a number of councils do have unspent new homes bonus money, and not all will have schemes they need to fund. Turning now to council tax. For a period of several years, this council successively either froze, reduced, or introduced only limited increases on that element of council tax that we levy on our residents. 3 years ago, when it became clear that government expected local authorities to become more financially self-sufficient and that we should pull all the levers available to us to raise the funds that we need, we accepted that we would need to increase council tax by the maximum that we are allowed without a referendum, which is £5 per year on a Band D property. Nothing has changed, and we have therefore planned in our budget for similar increases year on year for the life of the medium-term financial plan. But to give this some perspective, this increase is less than 10p per week and represents only 0.3% of a typical council tax bill. But this will generate critical additional revenue for us each year, every year. Another key source of income for the council is, of course, from our fees and charges. We review these annually, and for next year, we have again built into our budget a general increase of 2.5%. This is generally in line with inflation and reflects rises in our costs of delivery. The financial challenges we are facing are not new, even though this time round they are more severe. From the early days of austerity and cuts in our funding, we recognised that times would get difficult, and we therefore set our sights on becoming an entrepreneurial council, developing initiatives that would provide our own financial resources and make us less dependent on central funding. This led to the development of our financial sustainability strategy, which has been focused on income from commercial property investment to run alongside the revenue generated by our residential rental business, Millstream. We were, after all, following many other local authorities in using these methods for income generation, and in our case, we ensured that what we were doing was prudent and affordable. However, these initiatives relied on funding by borrowing, and the government announcement on the 25th of November that PWLB borrowing would no longer be permissible if any part of our capital programme contains investment primarily for yield means that, in short, we can no longer make further investments of this kind, though at least we are still able to benefit from the income generated by the investments we've made to date. Now, with regard to our reserves, in conjunction with the measures I've already outlined, given our general funding position, good management of our reserves is vital, and it is important that these reserves and how we use them are reviewed regularly to ensure they contribute in the most effective manner to help us maintain our service standards. Therefore, we do examine our reserves position annually to ensure that we have sufficient set aside not only to fund specific tasks and projects or other known commitments, but also to give us resilience against the unexpected. Our use of reserves is carefully planned, and they should not be relied upon merely to support the budget in place of savings. With regards to our capital programme, and in particular our major projects, Grange Paddocks and Northgate End are now well underway, and our plans for Hartham Leisure Centre and Hertford Theatre are progressing well. As part of our normal due diligence, the business cases for the leisure centres and the theatre were refreshed last year, and these exercises confirmed that for all three schemes, even after allowing for financing costs, we are still able to turn what are currently subsidies from the council into operating surpluses, which is key to supporting our medium-term financial plan moving forward. Old River Lane has also been moving ahead, and the final business case for the main site and the Art Centre will be presented to Council later this month. The total amount of capital investment we'll be making across the district next year is 45.8 million, of which these main projects represent 41.4 million. Due to our investment on this scale, we will be keeping a very watchful eye over the use of our cash funds and our need to borrow, and this is covered by our capital strategy and treasury management and investment strategies, which I'll be introducing later this evening. Looking ahead, whilst, as I said, our proposals present a balanced budget for next year, there are still substantial budget gaps in future years. Therefore, alongside the savings plans which have already been produced, we'll be introducing a transformation programme which is designed to identify further efficiencies in our ways of working, covering areas such as resourcing, procurement, income streams, and our operational needs. This will be a major piece of work for us over the next 3 years, but it will enable us to ensure that resources are focused on our corporate plan priorities, whilst reducing the pressure on the need to deliver further savings through reductions in service provision. Before I start to bring my report to a conclusion, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the leadership team, all our officers in finance, and across all our other services who have played their part as usual over the last year in formulating our business and financial plans for next year and beyond. Producing our budget plans continues to be extremely testing, and it is to them all we should give our thanks for having solid plans going forward. As a council, our aim is to deliver on our corporate priorities and to invest in our services and in our communities at the levels we would wish. Therefore, our objective has been to produce a budget for the coming year, which allows us to maintain levels of service, but within our means. So finally, despite there being so many factors working against us, we have nonetheless succeeded in bringing together a budget for next year, which still provides for the residents and communities across our district. This budget has been the hardest yet and has involved us as members making some very difficult decisions, and it is likely there are more difficult decisions still to come. But we have produced a budget which protects frontline services. I believe it provides the best deal for our residents and our communities, and I commend it to Council for approval. So, Chairman, my presentation has given the background to the processes which have led to the recommendations on tonight's paper on page 616 of the agenda pack. These cover our formal approval of the various aspects of the budget, and Chairman, I beg to move the recommendations, and as you are aware, this does require a recorded vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Mark Pope.
Mr. Chairman, I'm very happy to second the recommendations regarding the budget and the medium-term financial plan. I'd also like to thank officers and indeed members for their hard work in developing these. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pope. Comments, questions? Councillor Ione Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat group. We have studied the budget proposals quite carefully, and we do acknowledge the fact that this council is facing some very serious financial pressures. We accept the fact that what is being proposed is probably the best that could be achieved in these difficult circumstances. But we do believe that the possible negative effects of Brexit could have been foreseen and that some allowance could have been made for them. However, we do know that no one could have predicted the COVID-19 pandemic and the effect that that would have had on the council's finances. And nor could anyone have predicted that our central Westminster government would have changed the rules on public sector borrowing in such an abrupt and sudden manner as it did at the end of last year, 2020. However, even if neither of these two enormous events had taken place, we as a group do still question the wisdom of undertaking such a huge capital programme, millions of pounds to be spent on 4 large projects, all at the same time. We wonder, was this a rather risky undertaking? Would it not have been better to have been more cautious? We regret the fact that we're having now to increase our share of council tax by the maximum amount which is permitted. And this may cause problems for people who are financially disadvantaged, especially because of the COVID pandemic. Though we do take a little comfort from the fact that some of them may qualify for some concessions. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, the Liberal Democrat Group is not at all happy with the budget, but does recognise that it is probably the best that could be achieved in the circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goldspink. Councillor Ian Devonshire.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd just like to thank the Executive Member for Financial Sustainability and all the officers involved. I think they've done a fantastic job in trying to balance our budget for 2021-22. Personally, I applaud the fact that frontline services haven't been affected. I think it's a real shame that we can't increase our investment income by buying more Millstream purchases and also commercial purchases. That is a real shame because I thought that was a really good incentive, a really good idea and a way to boost our finances. So thank you, the teams involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Devonshire. Councillor Eric Buckmaster.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to comment briefly on Councillor Goldspink's comments, because I've been an executive member for almost 6 years, working with the leader and other exec members on these projects. So they're not suddenly there. They're all based on, as the executive member for finance said, in returning current subsidies to a positive revenue position. And they're all aging assets. So the leisure facilities were built, I think, in the 1970s. Hertford Theatre is aging. They would have all got to a point anyway where they would have cost us additional funding. So I think actually to invest capital to have a positive impact on revenue and to enhance the well-being of our residents is absolutely the right thing to do. And as executive member for, I was health and well-being, just well-being, I absolutely support doing everything we can on behalf of our residents to improve their lives in every way that we can. So I personally have no regrets whatsoever in the action that we've taken. And as the executive member said, the business cases were reviewed and they are still viable and will bring great pleasure to our current and future residents. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Buckmaster. Councillor Linda Hazy.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's very important to realise that this is, at the moment, we have been pretty much fully supported by grants coming from government. However, that will not continue. And as Councillor Williamson said, there's going to be a lot of change in the coming 2 to 3 years, which will really affect us. I think some of our residents seem to feel that, well, when the economy gets better, we can, as a council, do more. However, the economy may get better, but I think local government finance
Sorry,
will continue.
We lost the sound a bit there, Linda. If you just repeat your last sentence.
Extremely difficult. And so therefore we do need to be prudent. I was sorry, I have a very unstable broadband at the moment. But I do welcome Councillor Goldspink that this is as good a budget as we can get. We have not cut frontline services, and that is very much the Conservative approach to maintaining good quality services to our residents.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hazy. Councillor Carolyn Redfern.
Thank you, Chairman. I am also not incredibly pleased about this budget, although, as Councillor Goldspink said, it probably is the best that could be done at the moment. And this year, at least, the coming year, we seem to have managed to sort of pull it off. My concern is for the years after that. And I have to admit that I am not very au fait with at-risk register, but I was rather alarmed at some of the figures on the risk going forward in the subsequent years, and would have liked more of an explanation about those, but I think that it's probably too late to ask for that now. But I am extremely worried, not about the coming year, but the year after that and the year after that, because we're having to save more and more. And I'm just wondering how we're going to find savings without cutting services in the future. Because, you know, what will we have left to cut? So I am very concerned about that. Yes, I would agree with this budget for this year, but the medium term, not so happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Redfern. Councillor Alex Curtis.
I just wanted to ask, I know we've had former Labour and Liberal Democrat groups, as they've said, we're very grateful to hear that it's the best that could be done under the circumstances, fantastic endorsement, but they keep referring to bits that they're not pleased about, and I think that the point made about the capital projects and the need for them and the revenue generating potential of them should hopefully alleviate their concerns there. But I'm just interested to know how they're not pleased about, because they keep saying that they're not pleased about things, but they're not referring to specifics. So yeah, I'm just interested to know. So I think it's a very good budget given the incredibly difficult circumstances we find ourselves in as a council and indeed as a country.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. Councillor Bob Deering.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'd just like to make two very quick points. The first is a point which I don't think has been made in the conversation this evening so far about the investment that we're undertaking. And that is, of course, that it is investment. And it's investment into two of our bigger town centres, Bishop Stortford and Hertford. And I think an awful lot of people would say that if this council does not invest into our two biggest towns, where else is the investment going to come from? And I think this council should be applauded for investing in Hertford and Bishop Stortford. I'm sure all the people of these two towns will be extremely grateful. I'm sure all the traders and shopkeepers and whatever in the two towns will be extremely pleased that this council is taking some initiative to bring more people into each of these two towns, and that increased footfall no doubt will result in economic benefits. And the second thing I just thought I might say is that I agree with Councillor Redfern that the future is challenging, but that's where competent administrations come to the fore. This Conservative administration has kept the finances of East Herts District Council under control for the last several years. And I'm in no doubt that this Conservative administration has got the competence to continue to do that in the future. It's a question of competence and ability. Thank you very much.
Hear, hear.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. In response to a few of the points made, I think Councillor Curtis saying there's nothing specific. I think the specific thing is that if you do 4 capital projects at once, it carries a lot of risk. If one of those projects goes wrong, you have incurred debt to your revenue because you've got to pay back the borrowing. And we can't be 100% certain that these things are going to gain revenue for the council as is predicted. So I think the risk is greater than it could have been otherwise. And with regards to Councillor Deering's comment about Bishop Stortford residents being very happy about this, I think if you had to do a quick straw poll of people, something that I've spoken to, that I've seen on social media, and have made many representations to this council about Old River Lane, they're not at all confident that it will make a profit at the moment, and they're not at all grateful, I'm afraid, for the present plans. I think that's the general opinion of people in Bishop Stortford. So there's a real risk that that project in particular will not be an investment, and it could be a white elephant. And we have to really think whether therefore it was wise to put all this money into 4 projects at the same time.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Redfern, I'm sorry, we can't come back to you because you've spoken in this section. But Councillor Williamson, is there anything you want to respond to that you've heard in the last few minutes?
I don't think so. Thank you, Chairman. The comments are duly noted.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. So now we're voting on page 616, on item number 11. And if you could raise your hand if you're in favour of the proposal of this budget.
Sorry, Chairman, this is a recorded vote.
Oh, yes, of course it is. I'm sorry. My apologies. Yes, Katie will read out your name, and if you can say you're for, against, or abstain. Katie, go ahead.
Councillor Alder?
For.
Councillor Beckett?
Abstain.
Councillor Bell?
Abstain.
Councillor Bolton?
For.
Councillor Boylan?
For.
Councillor Brady?
Abstain.
Councillor Eric Buckmaster?
For.
Councillor Ruth Buckmaster?
For.
Councillor Ball?
For.
Councillor Bermitz?
For.
Councillor Corp?
Abstain.
Councillor Crofton?
For.
Councillor Crystal?
For.
Sorry, Councillor Crystal, I didn't catch that.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Curtis?
For.
Councillor Cutting?
For.
Councillor Deering?
For.
Councillor Devonshire?
For.
Councillor Drake?
For.
Councillor Dumont?
Abstain.
Councillor Fernando?
For.
Councillor Fretnell?
For.
Councillor Goldspink?
Abstain.
Councillor Goodeve?
For.
Councillor Hall?
For.
Councillor Hasey?
For.
Councillor Hollybum?
For.
Councillor Huggins? Councillor Huggins? No. Councillor Jones?
For.
Councillor Kay?
Abstain.
Councillor Kemp?
For.
Councillor McMullen?
For.
Councillor Newton?
For.
Councillor Page?
For.
Councillor Pope?
For.
Councillor Redfern?
Abstain.
Councillor Reid?
For.
Councillor Rowley?
For.
Councillor Ruffles?
For.
Councillor Rutland Barsby?
For.
Councillor Snowden?
For.
Councillor Stevenson?
For.
Councillor Stowe?
For.
Councillor Simons?
For.
Councillor Ward Booth?
For.
Councillor Williamson?
For.
Councillor Wilson?
Abstain.
And Councillor Wiley?
In favour.
Okay, that's agreed with 37 votes for and 9
Chairman,
abstentions.
Yes,
Chairman, if I,
yeah,
Chairman,
Councillor
point of
Andrews
order.
is with us now. Yes, Councillor Andrews, you
Oh,
can ask for
apologies.
your vote.
Yes, thank you. I have, yes, I did send my apologies, but I have been here for much of the meeting, and I do vote for this motion.
Okay, I saw when you came on earlier. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Andrews. So that is carried. And we now go on to the Council Tax 2021-22 tax setting formal resolution. This is item number 12. It's on the supplementary agenda number 1. And Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, having now just agreed our council tax rates for next year, this paper describes how our council tax charges are brought together with those from county and the precepts from towns and parishes and the Police and Crime Commissioner into the final calculations of household bills. Although this is essentially a technical piece of work and there is no decision to be made as such, regulations still require formal approval by the whole council. I would therefore ask, please, that we move the 3 recommendations on page 3 of the supplementary agenda. And again, Chairman, this does require a recorded vote.
Indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Snowden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I formally second this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? If not, we'll go to the vote, and we'll ask Katie then to, I'm afraid, go through all the names again, and if you can say if you're for, against, or abstain.
Okay, Councillor Alder?
For.
Councillor Andrews?
For.
Councillor Beckett.
Abstain.
Sorry, did you repeat that?
Abstain.
Councillor Bell.
Abstain.
Councillor Bolton.
For.
Councillor Boylan.
For.
Councillor Brady.
Abstain.
You silly girl.
Councillor Eric Buckmaster.
For.
Councillor Ruth Buckmaster.
For.
Councillor Ball.
For.
Councillor Bennett.
For.
Councillor Corp.
Abstain.
Councillor Crofton.
For.
Councillor Crystal.
For.
Councillor Curtis.
Or as we should all be taking a decision one way or the other on this.
Councillor Cutting.
For.
Councillor Deering.
For.
Councillor Devonshire.
For.
Councillor Drake.
For.
Councillor Dumont.
I'm abstaining.
Councillor Fernando.
For.
Councillor Frecknell.
For.
Councillor Goldspink.
Abstain.
Councillor Goodeve.
For.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Councillor Hasey. Councillor Hasey.
For.
Councillor Hollybon.
For.
Councillor Huggins. Councillor Huggins.
Seems to have disappeared.
Yeah.
He left some time ago, I think.
Oh, okay.
I haven't seen him come back.
Councillor Jones. Councillor Kay.
Abstain.
Councillor Kemp.
For.
Councillor McMullen.
For.
Councillor Newton.
For.
Councillor Page.
For.
Councillor Pope.
For.
Councillor Redfern.
Abstain.
Councillor
Didn't hear
Reid.
that. Kate. Oh, Reid.
For.
Councillor Reid. Sorry, I think that might have been me.
For.
Councillor Rowley.
For.
Councillor Ruffles.
For.
Councillor Rutland Barsby.
For.
Councillor Snowden.
For.
Councillor Stevenson. Councillor Stevenson. No. Councillor Stowe. Councillor Stowe.
Sorry, for.
Councillor Simons.
For.
Councillor Ward Booth.
For.
Councillor Williamson.
For.
Councillor Wilson.
Abstain.
Councillor Wiley.
For.
Okay, that's carried with 37 for and 9 abstentions.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, just on a point of order, there was a comment, I think, silly girl. I don't know if that was directed at the meeting after, I think, Councillor Brady spoke. I think we all heard it, but I hope it wasn't directed at the meeting, and I don't know who said it, but I'd ask them to withdraw the comment as someone votes. I think that's very inappropriate.
Well, thank you, Councillor Dumont. I'm sure that wasn't directed at me. It'd be lovely to be called a girl.
Yes, I mean, it came as you said it, so I just hope that it wasn't, and I think it, you know, whoever said it should apologise, because it definitely came across that as you said that, that it was directed at you. I hope I'm wrong, members.
Okay, thank you. The thing is, when we unmute ourselves and there are other things going on in the background and other people, we don't know if it's relating to the meeting or not, but I take your point, Councillor Dumont. Thank you. Item 30, Capital Strategy and Minimum Revenue Provision Policy 2021-2022. This is on page 699. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you again, Chairman. Well, the need for the Council to produce an annual capital strategy was introduced following strengthening of the guidance from both the MHCLG and SIPFA. which reinforce the wisdom of having published capital and treasury management strategies to manage and control these areas. The capital strategy is helpful as a high-level document for members and other stakeholders, as it pulls together and considers a range of both external and internal factors and how these interrelate with policy and decision-making in respect of capital investment. As such, it runs through and links our activities to ensure they are coordinated and consistent. For example, as we continue to deliver, review and update our capital programme, we will do so within the context of our corporate priorities and sustainability commitments. The document explains these various linkages and also the process for approval for both the overall capital strategy and individual capital schemes. Therefore, I am pleased to move the recommendation A on page 699 that the strategy and our minimum revenue provision policy provided in the report as Appendix A be approved by the Council, and you'll be pleased to hear this does not require a recorded vote.
Indeed, thank you, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Ian Kemp.
I'm happy to second the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. Any comments or questions at all? Councillor Ben Crystal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I just wanted to make a comment really on the corporate strategic plan on page 722. In particular, the priority 3, which is encouraging economic growth. I'm delighted to see that it's focusing on a green agenda investment purchases. And I appreciate this shift is partially due to changes in government policy, which may not be welcome, but I think that this slight change in course is very welcome, and it's overdue. So I do fully support this, and I wanted to highlight that, I think, as a good example of where things are moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crystal. Councillor Chris Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. It's a bit of a question really. On page 732, we talk about quite wisely adopting a long-term capital strategy. It does sort of imply that we haven't got one at the moment, and I'm wondering why that is, if I'm correct, and if so, why that is, and also whether that might explain, given my earlier point, why we decided to embark on 4 capital projects at the same time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Williamson, do you want to come back on that query?
Sorry, can I just ask Councillor Wilson which page he was referring to?
732.
732, yes. Thank you.
Referring to a long-term capital strategy.
All right, sorry. My system's taking me to the wrong page, isn't it? It's not page 732 of the document.
No, it's like 28, I think. Looks like, oh, yeah,
yeah.
I think it's 28.
Sorry, apologies.
I'm sorry, I am struggling to find it. I do wonder whether the answer is because the capital strategy has only been introduced as a council document within the last, I think this is the 2nd or 3rd year. So it is relatively new. So it may be a reference to the fact that this has been recently introduced. Sorry, without actually finding the page in the report, I can't be certain about that.
I think the question was to do with why a long-term capital strategy now, and we hadn't had one years previously, but you're actually saying it's been going for at least a couple of years.
Yes, I mean, going back to my introduction to the report, it was advice from SIPFA and MHCLG that a capital strategy local authorities should develop a capital strategy, but this was only introduced, I think, about 2 years ago or so.
Okay, right, thank you very much. Okay, so we now go to the vote on this one, and that's recommendation A on page 699. And if you just raise your yellow or blue hand if you're in favour.
Yes, that's carried, Chair.
Right, thank you. And just We'll clear the screen and we will now take anybody who's against and any abstentions. That's carried. Oh, 2 abstentions, 3 abstentions. Yeah, 2. Thank you. That's carried. And now we'll go on to the Treasury Management and Annual Investment Strategy 2021-2022. This is item number 14 on the agenda, and it's on page 763. Councillor Williamson.
So, Mr. Chairman, may I just intercede for one moment? I think I need to declare a prejudicial interest in this item. I work for Fitch Group, which is the parent company of Fitch Ratings. So I think I will not have to vote on this matter.
Okay, Councillor Snowden, thank you very much for that. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you. We are required to provide 3 Treasury reports for each financial year, of which this is the first, it being the forward-looking report covering the year coming. It covers our capital plans, including our prudential indicators, our minimum revenue provision policy, and our Treasury management and investment strategies. Broadly speaking, our Treasury function ensures that we have the cash available to cover our daily operating costs and that we have the longer term funding available to finance our capital projects. Surpluses are invested, with security being the most important factor, followed by liquidity and then yield. Needless to say, good Treasury management is vital to the effective functioning of the Council and all our various services. The Treasury Management and Annual Investment Strategy for 21-22 is within the report as Appendix A and our prudential indicators as Appendix B. And I'm pleased to move the recommendations on page 763 that these be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Alex Curtis.
I'm happy to second Councillor Williamson's motion.
Thank you very much indeed. And if there's no other comments or questions, we can vote. And if you're in favour, please raise your yellow or blue hand.
That's carried, Chair.
Thank you very much. And anybody against, please vote now. And any abstentions? Three abstentions. Thank you very much indeed. That is carried.
Chairman?
Yes. Who's that?
Beg your pardon. This is Councillor Rutland Barsby.
Yes.
My blue hand seemed to be flashing on and off. I just want to record that I am for.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. And I'll move on to item 15, the Human Resources Committee. And this is on page 839. And I'm going to invite the Executive Member for Corporate Services, Councillor George Cutting, to present this report.
Thank you, Chairman. This report details the recommendations to Council made by the Human Resources Committee at its meeting on the 16th of February 2021, details of which are recorded in Appendix A attached to the report. At that meeting, the Human Resources Committee considered and supported a report which sought to the approval of the Pay Policy Statement 2021-2022 by Council. Again, the details are recorded in Appendix B. So simply, I therefore propose that the recommendation to Council on page 840. Thank you.
Councillor Cutting. Councillor Rosemary Bolton.
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? If not, we'll go to the recommendation on page 840. And if you can vote in favour, raise your hand.
That's carried, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Anybody voting against, please raise your hand. Any abstentions, raise your hand. No. Okay, thank you. That is carried. The item 16, the community grants priorities 2021-2022, which is on page 863. And I'm asking for the Executive Member for Communities, Councillor Suzanne Rutland-Barsby, to speak on this.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. Every year, the Council reviews its grant policy and checks that the priorities are aligned correctly to the corporate principles. There is very little change from the paper unanimously adopted in December 2019. However, the key points that need your approval tonight are the continuation of the 2 pilot schemes that were introduced in 2021 for a duration of 1 year. I do not need to elaborate on the effect of COVID over the last 12 months. The one good thing is that this terrible situation has made very clear is the enormously enthusiastic community spirit and tremendously helpful volunteering that has assisted the official bodies to cope with the challenges thrown at them. As we move forward with the financial challenges caused by COVID for the coming years, small local initiatives need to be encouraged and nurtured. And with this in mind, I would ask you to endorse the continuation of the small grants pilot to assist with these activities, building more self-reliant and strong communities. The other pilot we wish to extend is the crowdfunding match scheme with the Hertfordshire County Council platform, Crowdfunding Hertfordshire. Again, this allows initiatives to become less reliant on the traditional grant programs of local authorities, which in the future may have to be reduced to cope with the continuing financial pressures. Finally, members, your participation is key to the success of these schemes. The endorsement and mentoring with your local knowledge is invaluable and contributes to the processes when officers come to consider and evaluate the applications. It is also important that you promote participation by local groups in the East Herts Lottery as an ongoing source of income for their efforts. Crowdfunding, as already said, can be important to help to specific projects. You will have seen the attendant papers with this report, and they contain very comprehensive information. However, if you have any queries or need assistance, the grants officer, Claire Pullen, is always very pleased to assist. Chairman, I would like to move the recommendation as laid out on page 863 of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rutland-Barsby. And Councillor Norma Simons.
Yeah, very happy to second the recommendation.
Thank you very much indeed. Any comments or questions? Councillor Myoni Goldspink.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The Liberal Democrat group is very happy to support this, and we especially like the idea of supporting small community groups. And yes, and we have all come to value everybody, especially during this horrible year of pandemic. And so we are very happy to support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Goldspink. Councillor James Fracknell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just again want to echo the benefits I see from this. I think the COVID-19 pandemic has shown the best of people and it's shown the worst of people, and I think that grant programs like this really do offer the opportunity for the best of us out there to support each other. So I wholeheartedly agree. I think with the positivity, and also to echo the thanks to Claire, who is fantastic, and the work that she does with the grants is excellent. I would certainly recommend that people get in touch with her with any grants questions, because she's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Frecknell. Councillor Caroline Redfern.
Actually, I didn't mean to raise my hand then, but since it's raised, I would also like to echo my praise of this document. It's an excellent idea, and I'm really very pleased that it's going forward. Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed, Councillor Redfern. Well, we're looking at page 863A, that the revised community grants policy and priorities for 2021-22 be approved. Those in favour, please raise your yellow or blue hand.
Yes, that's carried, Chairman.
Thank you. Just give anybody an opportunity if they want to vote against, if you can do so now. And any abstentions? No, that's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. And we now go on to item 17, which is motions on notice on page 905. Councillor Terence Beckett.
Thank you, Chairman. Bit of background, I've been doing a little bit of work with different councils around the country around sustainability, and particularly with one ex-colleague who's just managed to get a job working for Luton. And one of the things that they're looking at is setting up an energy company to help reduce the bills of their residents. I mean, obviously that's not without its dangers, as we know from places like Robin Hood Energy in Nottingham that have recently fallen over quite dramatically through what I believe is bad management from an external company. In also looking around, I've seen that other group organisations in communities can come together and as a group negotiate favourable rates from energy companies, which led me to come to bring this motion. So the motion being, one of the biggest barriers to reducing the carbon emissions in this district is the energy used by existing housing stock and commercial buildings. There are several routes the council could consider to help residents reduce their emissions. A, promoting 100% green energy tariff to residents through direct publicity campaign. B, negotiate preferential discount codes for our residents with 100% green energy suppliers and promote these. Or C, to investigate the possibility of becoming a sustainable energy supplier. The risk can be high if the council were to go it alone, but this is greatly reduced where the council works with an established supplier to provide services in its own name by provision of a white label service. Therefore, this council resolves to investigate all of the options open to it, including the possibility of setting up its own energy supply company, possibly as a subsidiary of Millstream. This company could be of the benefit to the environment, the residents, and to the councils. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Goldspeak, do you wish to speak now?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to second this proposal. I'd like to reserve my right to speak later, and I and my group would like to call for a recorded vote at the end of the debate. Thank you, but I'd like to speak properly later.
Yes,
thank
okay, thank you. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, this would normally be responded to by Graham McAndrew, but of course he's not with us tonight, so I'm going to reply on his behalf, if I may. On the point A, the environmental sustainability pages of the council website already include a section on energy efficiency advice, and within that there is a section on fuel tariff switching, though we are intending to amend the wording of this slightly to put more emphasis on the specific promotion of the benefits of selecting a genuinely 100% green energy tariff. Currently, the promotional focus is more on fuel poverty and minimising cost, although at the current time, many green energy tariffs can be very price competitive. We would not intend advocating a specific tariff from any one single supply company, but rather the advantages of utilising renewable energy in terms of encouraging further improvements to the energy mix of the UK grid. In terms of publicity, beyond that of the immediate council website, we are continuing to develop our own social media presence in relation to carbon reduction. We will be focusing on this in particular around appropriate national theme weeks, and it's likely that we will promote green energy further in this way. Additionally, East Hart is a very active member of the Hertfordshire Climate Change and Sustainability Partnership, or HCCSP. The partnership is looking to develop a significant county-wide behavioural change and promotional campaign over the coming months covering a number of sustainability and climate change issues. It's likely the promotion of renewable energy will be included within this. Point B is an interesting idea, but is likely to be difficult to achieve given the very competitive energy supply market that already exists, where in fact profit margins are fairly tight. However, thinking more broadly, what is currently being discussed again through the HCC SP Carbon Reduction Theme Group are possible ideas to investigate options to establish bulk buying schemes in relation to green energy and efficiency products, particularly photovoltaic. There may be opportunities to develop such schemes locally across Hertfordshire. The most advantageous arrangements are likely to be made through joint working with other local authorities. However, there are potential procurement issues that will need to be carefully examined. With regards to point C of the motion, as has been pointed out, becoming a sustainable energy supplier, or indeed any energy supply, can be extremely risky and expensive for local authorities. It is something that has previously been explored in Hertfordshire, and the consensus was that an individual district authority such as East Herts, or even a group of districts, is too small to do this efficiently. However, again, this is something that is being considered by the carbon group within HCC SP, but in some ways the popularity of council-operated energy supply companies has waned slightly due to the very competitive nature of the electricity supply market, and considerable care needs to be taken in this area. Clearly, there are advantages in running a white label operation in that precise tariffs can be selected and priority given potentially to fuel poor customers through creation of specific local social tariffs. And having said this, there is some consideration of the idea on a more regional basis across the eastern area as part of an EU-funded energy scheme, and it may well be options are brought forward in the near future. Indeed, this is covered by the Council's existing Sustainability Action Plan. So in summary, therefore, Chairman, we do believe the actions contained within the motion cover what we are already doing, or is in hand, or we have already considered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Just raise your hand. If not, we'll go to Councillor Goldspeak as the seconder. If you would like to, oh, well, actually, before I come to you, I'm going to go to Councillor Alistair Ward-Booth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Beckett, in his proposal of the motion, mentioned Robin Hood. He said that this was an example of bad management, and I agree. But it was bad management by the council. Grant Thornton accused the council of institutional blindness, and this is an enterprise that went on to lose Nottingham City Council taxpayers over £30 million. Bristol Energy has just folded with a £14 million loss, having never turned a profit. And white label companies set up by a host of authorities, including Portsmouth, Islington, Tower Hamlets, amongst others, have all ended up being expensive failures for the authorities who got involved. As Councillor Williamson has already said, the wider energy market is an increasingly competitive environment with tight profit margins. It's expensive to get into, it's expensive to operate in, and it's expensive to get out of, as demonstrated by the abject failure of so many other local authority schemes. East Herts does not have the expertise or the time or the effort or the officer resource to go into an enterprise like this. And given the significant budgetary pressures that this council is under in the short and medium term, I think it's irresponsible to propose such a venture with such a high degree of risk for council taxpayers. So I'll be voting against the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Ward-Booth. Councillor Ian Kemp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we all support the idea of sustainability, and the sustainability planning document demonstrates that. My concern would be, however, that this motion is maybe unduly prescriptive in the means that would be used to achieve that. In areas such as green energy tariffs, one has to be very careful as to whether they are genuinely effective green energy or not. Some are, some aren't. Some merely lead to one company selling you apparently green energy, but the energy is in fact going into the grid from fossil fuels and going to another company. we've had some very useful briefings from council officers as in the past as to which green energy tariffs are genuinely so, and the council is moving towards that. But it is something where I think we would have to be very cautious about making any recommendations in that direction to the general public.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. Councillor Alex Curtis.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to follow on from what Councillors Ward-Booth and Councillor Kemp have quite rightly highlighted by saying I think it's interesting that earlier this evening we heard from the Liberal Democrat group about how the council shouldn't be taking on risk in the form of the capital projects, but that they're perfectly happy to take on a lot more risk potentially in the form of the venture proposed under the third suggestion in this motion. There's some good ideas in here, don't get me wrong, but there's stuff that we're already doing as a council, and in terms of promoting 100% green energy tariffs. Obviously we can't promote individual suppliers, but this is all stuff that I think is fair. But the fact that there's a suggestion that we should be looking at whether to provide energy ourselves, even in partnership with a supplier, this is incredibly risky stuff, and I don't think it's in the interests of residents for their district council to be taking on this element of risk, because if things go wrong, guess who'd be picking up the bill? And yeah, I think we need to be very conscious of that, and that's why I'll be voting against this motion this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. Councillor Goldspink, do you want to speak as the seconder?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, thank you. I think maybe there's been some misunderstanding. The motion. Sorry?
You muted for a second, but you come back.
Oh, yes, right. I think there's been some misunderstanding about the motion. We're not proposing that the council should actually do this yet. We're just proposing that the council should investigate the possibility. And as some councillors have highlighted, some other councillors have tried it and they have not really been very successful. But there are other councils which have tried it, such as Essex County Council, and they have been really very successful. And I hear what people say, that we are already trying to encourage our residents individually to switch to the 100% green energy suppliers, and that is very, very good. But if more people join together, and hundreds or thousands of people join together, then that increases their bargaining power, and you can get a much better deal from energy companies because of the numbers. And in some places, I think in Essex, because of the large number of people who are participating, they have negotiated very good deals, and the individual people have seen savings of up to £230 per annum on their energy bills. If we were actually to do this, I think we could then ensure that the group would switch to energy suppliers which were 100% from renewable sources. That would be really good in helping everyone to reduce their carbon emissions. And also it would help them to save money on their bills. So if it worked, I think it would be a win-win situation. And I do think it is worth investigating. I'm not saying that we should do it. We might investigate and find that it was much too difficult, or that it really would not bring the savings that we had thought. But the proposal at the moment is that we should investigate this, because it might bring great benefit to our residents, to the environment, and possibly also to this council. So I commend this motion and I ask for your support, and we are asking for a recorded vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Goldspink. Councillor Beckett, as the proposer, do you want to come back on some of the comments?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, exactly as Councillor Goldspink said, the motion just listed out potential options that were out there that other councils are currently doing. My favoured one would be B, for us to work as a group. Essex are currently doing that very successfully, as are other councils. And the proposal is only, the motion, sorry, is only about investigating. And And just finally, I don't consider having a piece of information on a council website that people don't visit as active promotion of green energy. So I'd like to see us do something a little bit more than that, really.
Thank you again. Thank you, Councillor Beckett. Councillor Goldspink asked for a recorded vote. I need, I think, 5 of you to say you want a recorded vote. So if at least 5 put up your hands now, we'll go ahead with that. Right, okay, thank you very much. And we'll do that. Katie, if you would mind going through the names again, please. And if you can say if you're for or against or you abstain on agenda item 17.
Okay, Councillor Alder.
Against.
Councillor Andrews.
Against.
Councillor Beckett.
For.
Councillor Bell.
For.
Councillor Bolton.
Against.
Councillor Boylan.
Against.
Councillor Brady.
For.
Councillor Eric Buckmaster.
Against.
Councillor Ruth Buckmaster.
Against.
Councillor Ball.
Against.
Councillor Burmett.
Against.
Councillor Corp.
For.
Councillor Crofton.
Against.
Councillor Crystal.
For.
Councillor Curtis.
Against. I'm sorry.
Councillor Cutting.
Against.
Councillor Deering.
Against.
Councillor Devonshire.
Good idea, but I'm against.
Councillor Drake.
Against.
Councillor Dumont.
For.
Councillor Fernando.
Against.
Councillor Frecknell.
For.
Councillor Goldspink.
For.
Councillor Goodeve.
Against.
Councillor Hall.
Against.
Councillor Hasey.
Against.
Councillor Hollybom.
I think she's gone.
I think she's gone.
Councillor Huggins. No. Councillor Jones.
Against.
Councillor Kay.
Abstain.
Councillor Kemp.
Against.
Councillor McMullen.
Against.
Councillor Newton.
I think she's gone too.
Councillor Page.
Against.
Councillor Pope.
Against.
Councillor Redfern.
For.
Councillor Reid.
Against.
Councillor Rowley.
Against.
Councillor Ruffles.
Against.
Councillor Rutland Barsby.
Against.
Councillor Snowden.
Against.
Councillor Stevenson.
Abstain.
Councillor Stowe.
Again.
Councillor Simons.
Against.
Councillor Ward Booth.
Against.
Councillor Williamson.
Against.
Councillor Wilson.
For.
Councillor Wiley. Councillor Wiley.
Councillor Wiley, you there?
No.
No? Okay.
Okay, that motion has fallen with 10 votes for, 32 against and 2 abstentions.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Katie. And well, we've got it. We did our 905 plus pages tonight. Thank you very much indeed. A reminder that our next meeting is an extraordinary council meeting talking about Old River Lane, and that will be on Thursday, the 18th of March at the much earlier time of 4 p.m, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Hope to see as many of you there as possible. Stay safe, keep well, and that concludes our meeting at 9:21. Thank you very much.
Jonathan, if I just quickly there, you there still?
Yeah.
Oh, just we have no news of Leslie, by the way. In the meantime, we have tried to follow up.
Okay.
But I'll keep you informed as and when we do manage to make